Why is our new tool not being used? That's the number one question I get as a tool design consultant. You spent a bunch of time, money, and energy into building a new tool, and your internal artists, designers, and other customers just do not want to use it. Why? And the answer is usually very simple. Handoffs. Just too many handoffs. Which means that the problem origin is in product and production. What's not a problem is engineering expertise and user feedback. Those are usually pretty fine. Basically what happens is you have an artist and they run into some issue and they go, I need help. I need like a tool or a workflow change or something has to be different. And so that goes to an art producer. And a producer goes to a producer meeting. And then from the producer meeting, a tools producer hears about it. And then a tools producer gives it to a tools engineer. And then at that point, does the tools engineer talk to the artist? Usually that doesn't actually happen. There's just a bunch of handoffs. So instead, the tools engineer, builds something and they go, here's a new tool. And then they send it off to the tools producer. Producer takes it to the producer meeting takes it to the art producer gives it to the artist. And the artist goes, this new tool sucks. which is terrible. That's not a great thing. But that then goes to the art producer. Art producer goes back to the producer meeting. Producer goes back to the tools producer. To the engineer. Engineer goes, what the hell? Like I did what was asked on the ticket that I got from my producer. Why isn't it good enough? And then a lot of people are frustrated and unhappy. And I would say like pretty much 90+% of studios work this way. Like I've talked to many people, I've worked at many studios, I've worked with many studios. A lot of studios work this way and they have this issue. There's just way too many handoffs. Like I've been doing this for 15 years working in game development and I keep seeing it. So again, what's not a problem is engineering expertise and user feedback. The engineers are probably really smart and really good at coding, and the user feedback is totally realistic and fine. They're running into realistic issues that we need to solve. But handoffs have been a problem for a very long time, and not just for tools either. For example, Joel Burgess, a level designer on Skyrim, did a great talk at GDC 2013 about a similar problem, in this case with level designers and the art team. So they're building a level and they're constantly handing off back and forth to either make the level playable or make the level look really, really good. And it caused a lot of issues. And so we can kind of look at this image from that talk and we can kind of replace this with users and this with tools. And we kind of see the same problem. There's like a bunch of handoffs back and forth. So what's the solution? The solution is, sure, we still have to go through the production systems. Most companies still have those. And, things have to be checked and, end up on the right backlog, things like that. But once that's gone through it and we have a ticket of some kind of work that needs to happen and it's been agreed upon, at that point, engineer and the artist need to sort of be singled out. They need to be looked at and what do they need to do? So I'm just going to rename them engineer and customer in this case, just for ease of use of explaining this. So basically, those two people, get them together. Make them literally sit together if possible. Move their desks close to one another. So then, at any point, if the engineer is building on that ticket and, has an early solution or some early things to look at, the customer can just come right over and take a look. Hey, is this good enough? Is this, is this solving your problem? Are we going in the right direction? You can talk to each other and really find out, are we delivering the right thing? We can iterate towards a solution. And the customer can go back to their work. And at some point, the engineer will have something that's functional, they can actually use. And cool, get the customer right over there and literally try it out on the engineer's machine. And that's really, really important because basically at this point, there's no PRs yet. There's no weird bugs on another machine. The customer's machine might be way different plugins, all kinds of different things. A lot of weird stuff might be happening, but we're not dealing with that because everything is on the engineer's machine. Which also means there's direct debugging. If there's a crash or an issue or anything like that, we go right back to Visual Studio or Xcode on that engineer's machine. And there's direct feedback. The customer can kind of go, nope, this is not going in the right direction. Or, oh, yeah, this is kind of going this way. What about this? What about that? Now, of course, if you're remote, screen share. Just screen share it or take remote control of the engineer's machine. There's ways to solve that too. So the engineer and customer basically go through this process continually. Building things, trying things out, building things, trying this out. And at some point, the customer will use a thing and it will go, this is nice. Awesome. So at that point, they split ways again, right? Engineer goes back to their team and kind of goes hey, check this PR, is the code good? Do we need to make any changes to this? But we know what we're needing to build, and we know what the solution is that the customer requires. And the customer goes to all the other customers and goes, hey, this really new cool tool is coming. Like now you have an advocate inside that team that kind of goes, I tried this thing. It's awesome. When it comes out, please use it. And so now we're no longer wasting that precious engineering time to build something that the customers don't need because we know what they need and we've checked it with a customer. So then, we go back to the regular production process and the engineer goes, here's a new tool. Goes to the producer goes to a producer meeting goes to our producer takes it to the customer, and the customer goes, this is awesome. And everyone lived happily ever after. Of course, there are more factors. This is just the gist. It's a quick video to just explain a particular issue that I've seen. Like there's other things you can also take a look, like for example, having a clear goal for the tool, having a test scenario so QA can take a look at things very easily and make sure QA can smoke test this. And also, of course, be very careful of that scooter to car image that everyone loves to use, like this one. Be careful about it. I made a separate video on that one because it's a longer story, but be careful with these things. Now, some questions that often come up when I talk about these things is what if everyone's super busy? Like these artists, level designers, and these engineers don't have time to do all this talking. They got to be working constantly. And who has knowledge of the overall scope? Like if we have this one tool for this one particular thing, how do we know if it fits within all these other workflows and tools? And what if there are multiple tools being built? Do we just constantly sit everyone together with everyone else? We don't have the space, or there's just too much effort, or it doesn't fit well with the project we're building. And sure, all of those things could happen. So if we go back to this idea, right? We've gone through the loop. The artist's issue has landed on the tools engineer's lap. At that point, it can sometimes be really good to have another person there, a tool designer. And that tool designer can then facilitate the actual creation of the right thing. So in this case, let's rename them again to engineer and customer. And so the tool designer now owns the workflow. They own that this thing is going to be good and it's going to be nice to use and it fits within all these other tools we have. So they get the engineer and customer together and they kind of, talk, and the tool designer figures out oh, this is what needs to happen. Everyone goes back to their desks. Great. And the tool designer then designs the workflow and they understand the scope. They understand the scope of all these other workflows and tools and what needs to happen for this customer. They've built many tools before. They know what this stuff looks like a lot of the time. And so then when they have that initial design, and this is just in Figma or in paper or just in text even, again, grab the engineer and customer and kind of go, hey, is this good? Does this do the thing? Is this easy to build? Hey, engineer, does this take months or weeks or just a day to build? And hey, customer, does this solve your problem 70%, 80%, or 100%? And then we just have a general idea of oh, this is an easy thing that solves a lot of the problem or a hard thing that solves more of the problem, what's worthwhile, and we can figure something out together. And then it's approved. Hey, awesome. We know what we're building. So at this point, tool design engineer kind of look at things of hey, how can we do this? If there's any issues, or if anything pops up. And then, of course, if there's multiple tools, multiple engineers working on things, the tool designer can do all the legwork. They can go to the engineer and kind of go oh, hey, there's a thing here we found here, this issue here. And the engineer kind of goes hey, tool designer, what exactly does the customer want for this thing again? And the tool designer has the time to do that work. So the customer can keep on doing environment art or tech design or whatever it is that they're doing. They can keep on doing the work and not be bothered as much because the tool designer is doing all that legwork. Which also means the tool designer can go to the customer. The customer has a question of hey, I bumped to another thing, bumped to a different thing. And they can make it nice and easy to talk to everyone. Which is why, and especially the people at Guerrilla and IO Interactive, the previous studios that I've worked at know, that I've often mentioned that a tool designer not at their desk is a good tool designer. They are finding things out, they're talking to people and figuring out what the right thing is to do and helping those people build the right things. So basically, we do all that work, we go on that iterative loop, right? And then at some point, of course, we have a finished tool. Awesome. And so everyone again, goes to the engineer's machine. We still have that same thing of hey, no PRs, try it out on the engineer's machine, all that stuff. And then hopefully, if everything went well, this is awesome. We hear the customer really, really, really super happy. And then again, we split up. And at this point also, what's really helpful is that the tool designer has seen the whole process, has seen what the engineer did, what the customer did, and they can then document that workflow. They can write things down so that everyone else also understand how that tool worked and how those workflows work. As again, they have the time to do that. That engineer is super busy coding stuff. The customer is super busy building levels. Tool designer's got the time because there's a role for that. So then, of course, at this point, tool designer gets out of the way again. We go to this production system, an engineer gets a tools producer, art producer, and then a customer, and the customer uses it and is happy about it. So when people are asking me, why is our new tool not being used? The takeaways really here are prevent many handoffs. If you have too many handoffs, you're not going to deliver the right thing to the customer. And make an engineer work directly with a customer. Make sure that they sit together and really look at what's going on. And if you have like a lot of stuff and a big scope, hire a tool designer. They'll solve this problem for you. Thank you very much.